Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Data Breach Playbook, Lessons for Every Business Leader. Today, the episode that we are in is Inside a Data Breach, Step-by-Step Destruction of a Business. I'm joined with Jason from Mills and Oakley and Andrew from Infosure. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having us, Liam.
No worries at all. I wanted to start and just get an understanding, because from my experience or just speaking with different business owners and business leaders, everyone's got a different understanding of what a data breach is. I would love, and maybe Jason, this would be something that you can, the lawyer, the most educated one in the room, maybe, if you could give us, what is a data breach? What constitutes a data breach?
Yeah, sure, Liam. I'm not sure if I'm the most educated person. I just know maybe different stuff than you know. Yeah, lawyers do tend to have a bit of a reputation about being know-it-alls, but I'll try at least at sharing from my experience what a data breach, and I'm putting air quotes for those listening, not watching. I think in simple terms, as it says on the can, it's a situation where an organization suffers some kind of incident or event where data that business holds is breached, compromised, stolen, taken, accessed by someone that shouldn't have been accessing it or taking it. And that can be, of course, a criminal, an external, unknown actor or threat actor, as they can be known, or it could actually be someone in your organization who's done it accidentally, and everything in between. So, and so the way then the law interacts with a data breach is that in Australia, and I won't bore people with anything other than Australian law, under the Privacy Act, which is a federal piece of legislation, it says that when a eligible data breach occurs, and that's a defined term in the legislation, you need to report that data breach to the Privacy Commissioner, and you also need to notify the individuals who have been impacted by that data breach. In other words, people who have had their personal information stolen, compromised, accessed without authority as part of that data breach. And so I would say that eligible data breaches are actually a much, much smaller subset of data breaches. And that's really important for people to understand when listening to this, is that you will need assistance from people like me and Andrew and yourself, Liam, when they have had a data breach. It doesn't, and most of the time, it won't eventually be an eligible data breach that requires reporting. And that's something that most people don't understand until they've experienced it, and that's becoming more and more common. But I hope that's at least given people sort of that broad understanding of what is a data breach. Hence, this being called the Data Breach Playbook, it's a good place to start.
Absolutely. No, that's great to know and understand, because at least, again, on my side of the fence of my industry love to have all these different words and acronyms and meanings and things like that get thrown around. And when they're talking to business owners and customers, they're using all this language. And if I take my hat off of being, a tech, a cybersecurity guy, and I put myself in the shoes of a business owner, half the time I sit there and go, well, what does that even mean? So thank you for helping define what that is. And it's very interesting too, from the legal or the law aspect of what you touched on. I think at least myself trying to read and understand a lot of that, it can be very difficult to understand a lot of the government acts and not legislation, but just the terminologies and things like that. So that is a great help with that.
Completely understand. And look, there's a bunch of other different types of cyber incidents that aren't data breaches as well, that are regulated and require assistance through. Ransomware attacks is an obvious one. Financial frauds is another type of cyber incident that can arise. So not every cyber event is a data breach, but they do tend to get the most attention, particularly by media, because they're the ones that involve lots of people, lots of innocent,
Yeah.
individuals, mums and dads who have been caught up in it.
Yeah, 100%. No, thank you. Thank you for that. What I want to do is I want to quickly just run through where each of us fit in the context of a cyber incident, and maybe the term that we should be using is cyber incident for that very reason, or data breach. So, I mean, obviously, I'm a managed security services provider. We've got cyber insurance, and then we've got obviously incident response and cyber law in the room as well. So, I just wanted to touch on, where do we all fit in? Because I think a common misconception is, which I think was discussed on the previous episode, is once an incident's reported, then the customer can put their feet up, or sorry, the business owner can put their feet up and go, cool, all handled. Whereas, and I think in reality, there is a lot of backwards and forwards and crossover, and and also even then, I think it's important to acknowledge that and I think this is what you said last episode, Jason, or you alluded to it. It's we're not all in competition. If anything, it's all three working together for the best result possible in a situation like a data breach, because there's a lot that can go wrong. So I'll probably start off first in terms of the journey of where a managed security services provider fits in. As I mentioned in the last episode, I would say kind of boots on the ground, the closest to the business owner in terms of helping reduce risk and understanding where the environment is at a technical perspective, and then helping relay those risks to the business owner to say, hey, you don't have multi-factor authentication turned on for everything. Side note, it's 2025, people. Turn on multi-factor authentication, please. It's 2025. I can't tell you how many times I come across that not being enabled. Side note. We work with those business owners to help implement and lift the standard of their systems and their tech to make sure it is secured. And then, from there, depending on who you work with, hopefully you work with a good provider and they are recommending to business owners to get cyber insurance. And I think, again, we touched in the last episode, why that's important. But I think, Andrew, I completely lost my train of thought. That's fantastic. Love that. Oh, it's hot. It is hot. Okay, so yes, that's what the MSP does and works with, and having us in the corner with the business owner, or the business itself. We are that kind of go-to tech. Like, hey, we've got we do have a cyber insurance agent asking questions about tech stuff. What do we do? Who do we speak to? No worries. Let's try and help have that conversation and kind of try and translate a lot of the technical terms, because as I mentioned before, there are a lot of technical terms. But yeah, Andrew, did you want to take us through, in terms of cyber insurance, where does that fit in the context of a data breach? I know we touched on that the last time, but feel free to run us through.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think like this, some business owners, it's so important to put things in analogies. It's sort of like, Liam, let's just go crazy here and let's turn into car insurance. Liam, you're the one that services the brakes, changes the tires, gives driver training. You basically keep the car to a point, and the driver to a degree, from having an accident, right? You are so important, because outside of me, you don't want to have an accident in the first place. It's very traumatizing. It's a very expensive process, right? And as Jason said, it could affect someone else. So you could hit someone else, right? You're that guy. I am the insurance to insure the car. Jason is there as sort of the crash repairer, or the person who's going to bring the car back onto the road. Hopefully you do get back on the road.
The towing guy. Yeah.
No, it's almost sometimes the business owner needs to hear that. So Liam's going to stop me from having an incident, or do his best. Andrew's going to make sure there's enough finances in the kitty so that Jason can do his job, and I don't find myself in a pickle that Jason tells me it's $15,000 to fix the car and I have $3,000. That's how I see it. So and you're right. So cyber insurance for me it doesn't step on anyone's toes. I can only speak for our company. We've moved into, and actually, Liam, you're a great one for this, because you're going to test to it. We work with insurers that don't rely on 68-page proposal forms with a pen that seem more like marking homework than anything else. We work with, these days, software like UpGuard, We look at doing external. We can't do any intrusive internals, but external threat monitoring, vulnerability scanning, things that are moving into the okay. So what did you do with your client to stop us from having to pay out? As bad as it sounds, that's what they're looking for. But if it does happen, this is what we will provide. The most important part of my job, to be quite frank, is to set the policy up well enough for Jason to be able to use it. Because if the broker does not set the policy up with the right limits, let's say for argument's sake, you're a $20 million turnover company. Someone says, yeah, I'll just buy 250 grand limit. Jason, for your size, the size of your company and what it's going to take, because naturally bigger you are, the more data, PIIs, personally identifiable information, records you might have, even down to, and I'll go back to what you said before. I look at it as there's 3 risks to a client having a cyber incident. There's the government risks, your regulations and your sort of things you have to abide by. But then you have commercial risks. So who says, even if the government said, hey, you're fine, you don't need to notify us. One of your biggest suppliers might go, you spooked me. I really don't want anything to do with you at the moment. You have freaked me out. We're going to hit pause on dealing with you. And they may give you 100 grand a year of work. They may be your number one supplier. We've had cyber incidents where, we've had to have people go in and negotiate with a supplier because they're threatening to kill a contract, because that's fine. The government's not involved, but the commercial risk is someone in your supply chain goes, yeah, this has freaked me out. And then of course the third one is you just run out of money. Like you just run out of money. So, I think there's government risks, there's commercial risks, and there's just straight financial risks. So, we're only as good as our cybersecurity partners. And, to be quite frank, I'm only as good as understanding the business enough to know how much money they need in their bucket, so that when Jason needs to use the bucket, it doesn't run out, because it can, and Jason will touch on this, there's things people have never thought of that they're going to have to pay for a cyber incident or a data breach regardless. These are things that I know like the back. Well, I learn every day, but we do know enough now to say that we know it like the back of our hand. So, yeah, that's our role in it. And to be quite frank, as soon as the incident happens, it goes straight up to you, Jason. So I'll move over to you.
Yeah, look, in terms of, I guess, Liam, the overall picture of how we all work together, I think cyber insurance is a very unique insurance product in that it instantly engages cover. I know, Andrew, there's a few exceptions with, notice periods and with different coverages, but not to get too complicated, the policy engages straight away. An organization suffers a data breach or some other kind of incident, and they notify their insurer, and it goes through to their incident response team. You're on a triage call within a very short period of time with experts to help you, compared to other types of insurance where PI is nothing like cyber insurance, but yet people sometimes rely on it as cover for cyber incidents. But it's not engaged unless someone sues you. So that doesn't happen. Nowhere near that. We've just found some suspicious activity on an IT network. So, and then when we're talking about, scenarios, when we're comparing the home insurance or the car insurance, it's not a perfect fit, because it would be like, we know there's been an accident. We know there's been a fire. Mm-hmm. Cyber insurance actually engages where you've had a suspected data breach or a suspected, cyber incident. You actually don't know yet exactly what's going on. And so you get access to a forensic expert, who can, get into your network, look at logs, look at the evidence to decide, is this something we need to worry about? Or are we looking okay? Can we actually just move on? And it's not as bad as we initially thought. I guess it'd be like the car being on its way to the telegraph pole, and you get to call your insurer when you're about to hit the pole and just say, look, I think I'm going to have an accident. Can you help me? Maybe, actually, we think you're going to miss. It's going to be okay. Don't worry about it. Oh, now I've incurred these expenses. Don't worry, we're going to cover them anyway. And off you scoot down the road. Heaven forbid you actually whack into that pole and they're there for you as well. So that's, I think, A common misconception with cyber insurance is that it's not like others where it requires a proven event or a claim against you. It is a responsive product where suspicion alone is enough.
Yeah. Great. Really, really great. And look, I think, I'd love to play out an example or a scenario where, a cyber breach would happen to kind of really understand where and how this all kind of fits together. And I think typically, I mean, it can start any which way, but typically from my experience and I'm sure your guys' experience as well, it'll normally start off with a call from a business to someone like myself. Hey, something weird's going on. Or, hey, the classic one actually is, and I remember getting this call. Hey, Liam, we're seeing we can't open any documents on our server. Can you jump on and have a look? Yeah, no worries. Jump on in, and then you see the file change to sales contract dot encrypted, and you're like, okay, right, okay, there's an issue here. All right, let's jump on the phone and get cyber insurance involved in one way or another. And then I think from there, to be completely honest, I don't actually know what really happens from there. I normally wait for a call back from someone, say, hey, there's been a report of something.
Which is ironic because let's expel a myth right here. Most of the people I speak to from the IT and cyber world are, first the thing the insurer will do is look how to not pay the claim. So they'll pull out the proposal form with a pen and start going, right, how do we go through here and find out that you ticked, X when you should have ticked Y? It's just not. Oh, well, any policy we set, Jason and I work on, usually it's just not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, where it goes next, Liam, and I've had, the chance to work with some great MSPs where, you often are the first port of call because that's normal. Like you have the contract, the active, contract where you might be providing day-to-day services, or you might be providing some, more reactive, bespoke kind of things where, you get a call and you help out an organization. So you might get a call when something weird's going on. And so then, you may ask, do you have insurance, cyber insurance? And if they say they do, who's your broker? Call your broker. Hopefully that retail broker then knows, the process from there. And commonly across, and there's a large number of insurers in the Australian market, but generally speaking, they have a protocol which requires a phone call to their incident response organisation. It's commonly a law firm, but it might be a forensic cybersecurity company or some kind of specialist IR firm, and they then literally interact with the insured as soon as possible as to what's happened. And it's a discovery exercise. It's, what's happened. And, the calls that my team take, we are asking lots of questions, trying to find out what we can as quickly as we can, and seeing whether we need to involve other experts or whether it's something that we can deal with ourselves for them. And then through that triage process, because we're on an insurance panel, the beauty that also provides to the insured is that they don't have to worry about updating, the broker and the insurer from that moment on. It's not a case of, now I've got to, be writing emails every day. This has happened. That's part of my job, is actually then keeping the insurer updated as to what's going on and the costs that are being incurred. And the only, thing that we ask of insureds is just to be available to be on, meetings and provide information that we need, or interact with you as an MSP, or, the security forensic people that might need to dig a bit deeper, just to be, willing to be involved in that process. And of course, provide instructions at critical points in time. That may be, do we need to notify the regulator or people? And we'll advise on that. And we need instructions whether to do that from the insured as well as the insurer. And then other different more commercial decisions, because where the law is at in Australia with regards to the notification of data breaches is that there is a lot of instances where one organisation might decide, I want to notify this to people impacted, and another organisation might decide, I don't want to. And both are correct and haven't done the wrong thing. And that may sound strange, but that's because the wording of the legislation that is used to require people to notify is subject to interpretation by lawyers like myself and getting instructions from organisations, and opinions may differ. And also organisations' risk appetite or desire to want to tell clients and staff that this has happened can vary substantially. You've got organisations who will do anything to not notify as long as they comply with the law. Then you've got the other organisations who are just chomping at the bit. I just got to tell my people. I've got to tell my customers straight away. I'm like, you don't need to, mate. Like, hold fire. It's okay. It's like, no, I really want to. I think they'll appreciate the transparency in it. It's like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah. And just with what you were saying there, is it, I guess this is expelling another myth. Once yourself will potentially get involved in a situation like that, is it pretty much just, that at least from my perspective, MSP just puts the feet on the desk and says, cool, the guys are handling it? I don't believe that's the case. From the experiences I've had, it's been quite collaborative. Is that what you've been seeing and have experienced?
Oh, look, yeah. Look, I'm sure you won't be surprised. There's some service providers that aren't as collaborative as others. That's that's human nature, because it can be quite disruptive to their business as well if they're involved innocently as a service provider to an incident involving one of their clients. So we try and work with an MSP or IT service provider in a way that is just getting what we need, getting the access we need, information as to what around what the environment's looking like, what investigation have they undertaken, what mitigation or remediation steps have they already taken, has there been any history that might be relevant, things like that. We don't want to overwhelm them. We appreciate it's not their job to be forensically investigating and representing, but as I said, I think it's just getting better and better. The more we get to work with MSPs on incidents, the more we can do a great job for our common client. Because as I said in the first episode of the pod, our main game is to get the business up and running again and complying with the law, and the service provider is a big part of that. So yeah.
Absolutely. Got any thoughts on that, Andrew?
Yeah, naturally. Jason's incredible. He's honestly, I think this is what I love saying to my prospects is we don't just sell policies, we speak to the people behind the policies, whether that's the insurer writing it or people like Jason who are responding, which, to be quite frank, I think is missing in a lot of cyber insurance conversations. But no, it's fascinating sort of, to hear, I won't name names, I'm not allowed to, but to hear someone on a business end who was involved in a breach, and they said the most crucial thing for us, because they had a board, was our breach coach, which, as Jason will testament, it's someone to go, the client was saying, we want to go left. The breach coach was going, look, that's an option, but I'm going to tell you 4 steps down the line where that may screw you over. I'd like to give you some feedback as to where I would take that. And the board's going, oh, we didn't even think of that. And they just said it was nice to have before we go, what we're hearing with people who don't have any instant response help or don't even have a plan is that everyone's running around headless chook. Everyone's blaming each other. All of a sudden, the council's yelling at payroll's yelling back. This is your fault. No, this is your fault. And to have someone in the room where it's no one's fault, we just need to work out what's going on. Which, that's, as I said,
it's a great
my job, my sole job is 2 things. 1, to have conversations with businesses to know they need cyber insurance, and 2, to set the policy so that Jason can do his job. Now, your job, Liam, is to prevent the incident, do everything you can with that client to do that, right? So it's this collaborative approach is, I think, the whole point of the pod, and we're going to have further episodes or series down. We're actually going to have some stories around, what's happened, and I just want people to think about, as the pod goes on, what am I going to do at the moment? What do we have in place? Because as we said in episode 1, no one goes through a list and goes, company's too small. Oh, that's good size. No, it is just straight opportunistic out there. It's let's just go in and have a look, and we'll steal what we can. I mean, as you say, there's small homes around the country that have very expensive things in them, and then there's massive homes that have not really much. You go in, you go, this is pretty boring, and so this is what's happening out there. So yeah, the collaborative approach of the three of us, I think, is really going to stand out in this over the next few episodes as well, because these are real. This is real. It's been real for a while, and the more that, sorry, I will finish with my spicy sauce. The more that IT, cyber, and insurance fight, the less business owners are going to get, because it's like politics. It's just like politics. If we all sling mud at each other, nothing happens. I think that's my main mission, is that I've got a big network. I've been around for a while. I've got situations where everyone's humming along and the client loves it because they know they've got this team. The MSP or the MSSP or everyone's cyber insurance guy. We're all on the same calls, like we're doing now. We're all on the same call going, okay, that's not my area. You do that. He'll do that. I'll make sure I'm there for that. And the client's going, this is fantastic. This is awesome.
Yeah.
I want to do what I do in my business, which is,
100%.
which is great. But yep, that's my thoughts.
100%.
Yeah, it's an excellent point, mate. It just dawned on me that we actually both want the client to still exist after the incident. It's not good for anyone's business if the client goes under. It doesn't matter how great their security was or what contract you've got with them. That's then null and void. So, look, I agree with you, Andrew. I think collaboration is the word this year between insurance, cyber, legal who work in that space, government. I'm seeing that at some of the events that I'm a part of, where the different sectors come together, because I'm sure you'd attest, Liam. Cyber's been getting together for decades for awesome conferences. Andrew and I, we've just jumped on the bandwagon the last number of years and realised how cool these conferences are to come along to, and hopefully you'll continue to welcome us, and because it's so great to continue to meet more people and all the work you do and all the fantastic experts across the industry, because we're not trying to cut grass here. We're just we're trying to help out clients in our particular part of the service pie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that would be, if I was to sum up the key takeaway of this episode as we sort of bring it to a close, I think that's the biggest thing, is collaboration. Egos aside, when you collaborate, it really just becomes the best result for the business. And you've absolutely hit the nail on the head there, Jason. At the end of the day, if an incident happens, everyone's goal should be for that business to continue operating and have the least amount of impact in place. And I think that's really important to end on and to think about over time, because you're right, Andrew, it's so easy to get into mudslinging, but that's just not productive for anyone. So I think this is going to be a great podcast. I look forward to the many more episodes to come. I thank you both for being here and contributing. Join us next week for episode 3, where we will dive into what a breach coach is in particular, or not necessarily in particular, as well as incident response and how that all pieces together. We'll be delving into that. So thank you for joining in, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.